Today sure is a good day to go fishing for a good book. Oh, I got something. It's a good blow. Oh, yeah, I say. Looks like it's gonna be a good one.
Hello boys and girls, and welcome to the Ingleside Public Library Virtual Summer Reading Program. Today, we are going to be reading Jangles, A Big Fish Story by David Shannon. When the sun goes down and the weather's just right, Big Lake gets as smooth as glass, and a thin mist whispers around it. That's when you might catch a glimpse of Jangles. My father told me lots of stories, but my favorite was about a giant trout he saw when he was a kid. I still remember sitting with him in front of the big stone fireplace at the cabin. He pulled out a dirty green tackle box and shook it a couple of times, so it rattled. Then he told me the story. When I was a kid, Jangles was the biggest fish anyone had ever seen or heard. That's right, you could hear Jangles. He'd broken so many fishing lines that his huge, crooked jaw was covered with shiny metal lures and rusty old fish hooks of all shapes and sizes. They clinked and clattered as he swam. That's why he was called Jangles. Jangles was so big, he ate eagles from the trees that hung out over the lake and full-grown beavers that strayed too far from home. But he didn't seem to care much for the taste of kids. In fact, people swear one time Jangles saved a baby who fell into the lake when his family's canoe tipped over. They say he took that baby up so gently that none of his hooks even stuck it, and he swam it to the shore. Supposedly, he gave the baby's mama a dirty look as if to say, "What are you doing bringing your precious little baby out here in a tippy old canoe?" Everyone wanted to catch Jangles. They held big tournaments with lots of prize money, but no one could bring him in. He was too smart and too strong, and he lived too deep down in the middle of the lake. They tried all sorts of tricks, like using whole turkeys for bait. One fellow even tried dynamite. He threw big cans of tuna fish in the water and waited till he heard Jangles coming. Then he lit a stick of dynamite and tossed it in the lake. I don't know if it hit a rock or something, but that dynamite came flying out of the water and into his boat and blew it to smithereens. Then he had to swim all the way back to his dock. He said Jangles came up and bumped him on his butt, but nobody believed him. One time, when I was just about your age, I was fishing over where the creek comes into the lake, and my anchor came loose. I was concentrating so hard on catching a fish that I didn't notice I was drifting away out into the middle of the lake. There wasn't another soul out there, and it was getting dark. Just when I realized where I was, I felt a tug on my line. Not a real big tug, but something was on the other end. I started to reel it in. It was wiggling all right, but I didn't really feel like a fish. I finally got it in, and what do you know? I'd snagged an old fishing rod that somebody must have dropped out of a boat a long time ago. I started to reel in that one too. I cranked and finally felt the end of it getting closer to the surface. Then I heard a sound that made my whole body feel all prickly. It was kinda soft at first. Tinkle, tankle, dingle. But then it started getting louder. Tingle, jingle, jangle. Now, I used to daydream all the time about catching jangles, but right then I was scared to death. Just when I saw the lure on the end of the line, a gigantic shadow came out of the deep darkness and swallowed it up. My rod bent nearly in half. I was hanging onto it like it was my first dollar when Jangles suddenly swam under the boat and pulled me right over the side and into the cold, black lake. Down we went like a crazy horse and buggy. Pretty soon, I noticed I could still breathe, and the water wasn't cold anymore. Finally, we came to a cave in the deepest part of the lake. It was decorated with parts of old boats and lots of rods and reels. "This is my home," said Jangles. "It has been a long time since I've had a visitor." His voice was so low and soothing, it seemed perfectly natural that this fish was talking, so I wasn't afraid at all. Then Jangles told me stories, amazing, wonderful stories about the beginning of the earth before there were people, and stories about wise old redwood trees and animals who were silly, and the great fish that lived before him in Big Lake. It was like Jangles was my magic uncle. After a while, I started to get sleepy, and he said, "Time to go." He told me to hang on to the big fin on his back. I still had the old rod in my hand, and we swam up. And as we swam up and the water turned from black to purple, I slowly pulled out some line and made a bunch of long loops. When we reached the surface, Jangles swam alongside my boat, quick as a minnow. I hopped off the fish's giant back and threw the coils of line around him. Then, with a sharp yank, I spun him upside down. Now, you might not know this, but when you lure a fish upside down, even a big, old, smart fish like Jangles, it gets confused and can hardly move, like it's paralyzed. "Gotcha!" I shouted. Jangles just lay there, but he could still talk. "You tricked me," he cried. "I told you secrets from the beginning of time, and this is how you thank me?" "You are a fish," I said, "and I have caught you." "Set me free," Jangles urged. "I am more than a fish. I am a storyteller, and a story." "A story no one will believe if I let you go," I replied. Then Jangles asked me, "Is that more important than doing what is right?" I thought of all the wondrous things I'd heard that day. Then I thought about people dragging whole turkeys around the lake. "You're right," I said. "I'm sorry. I will set you free. But what can I do to apologize?" I swear Jangles grinned at me with that big, crooked, jingly jaw of his. "There is one thing you can do to help me," he said. "And it would also prove you caught old Jangles." That's when my dad stopped telling his story and gave me his tackle box. It was full to the top with shiny metal lures and rusty old fish hooks of all shapes and sizes. He never told anyone about catching the giant fish. He kept it a secret until that night, when he told me. Heyo, kiddos! Did you enjoy our totally dramatic reading of Jangles, a Big Fish Story by David Shannon? Are you craving sushi? Because some of us might be. Do you want to read? Because reading is pretty darn cool. Well, do I have some recommendations for you? So our first recommendation is Fish Talk, based on the popular characters from the children's story Finding Dory. So, in keeping with the themes of the movie, I have forgotten what this book is about. So that is our first recommendation. Next up we have the Bad Guys series. I just grabbed the first book, but we have 6 books in this series. So a wolf, a piranha, a shark, and a snake all team up and decide to reform their lives. And once and for all, they will become the good guys. Once again, we have 6 books in this series. Next we have River Monsters. Fishing can be fun and all, but some fish can huff and puff and, oh, what was that? Oh, sorry kids, my director informed me that's the wrong story. Anyway, this book informs you about various fish from all around the world. Some of these fish are dangerous, and I repeat, and I cannot stress this enough, they are in fact not the snack that smiles back. Those are goldfish. These are piranhas. Once again, that is the book River Monsters. Alright, so if you or a loved one have ever been, or currently are, a child, then something you may enjoy doing is drawing. Now, with this book here, you can learn how to draw cartoon fish. You can learn to draw triangles. You can learn to draw ovals. You can learn to draw circles. There's a lot in this book. And you'll be able to check it out and, learn the techniques that masters use to go ahead and create cartoon fish. Once again, these are all available at the Ingleside Public Library. Thank you for joining us today. Join Miss Jane on Thursday's craft video to make a fishing game. It will end up looking something like this. Don't forget to stop by the library this week to pick up your first bag and reading log. If you haven't registered yet for our summer reading program, it's not too late. You can visit our website or you can come into the library and register in person.